It's time for the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games at Southern Utah University in Cedar City. Register today to participate in the 40th anniversary season of a Utah sports tradition at utahsummergames.org. Participate in over 50 sports around the state. Then plan to join the opening ceremonies Friday, June 5th, presented by State Bank of Southern Utah. Register today to participate in the 40th anniversary season of the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games.
I sold my car in Carvana last night.
Well, that's cool.
No, you don't understand. It went perfectly. Real offer, down to the penny. They're picking it up tomorrow. Nothing went wrong.
So, what's the problem?
That is the problem. Nothing in my life goes as smoothly. I'm waiting for the catch.
Maybe there's no catch.
That's exactly what a catch would want me to think.
Wow, you need to relax.
I need to knock on wood. Do we have wood? Is this table wood?
I think it's laminate.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's close enough.
Car selling without a catch. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.
Just doing it big, you know?
Your home for the best sports radio for your afternoon drive is right here. This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Corrections and retractions. ESPN/ABC is going to air the Super Bowl next year for the first time since '06, according to Christian's crack research staff during the break. So now it's going to be a rotation of 4 networks for the Super Bowl.
Is it 4, or is somebody losing it? Did somebody lose a bid?
I'm sure they're just bringing them in. Got to get Joe Buck back on that Super Bowl call. Joe and Troy.
Can't lose him.
No, I suppose not. So anyway,
You're right. The rotation is CBS, Fox, NBC, and ABC. Beginning 2024 is when the new run goes.
How much do you think? Just a continuation off our conversation, real quick, and then we're going to talk to NBA draft with Chuck here momentarily. But how much do you think ESPN or any of those companies would pay to have that game every year?
Yeah, if you could become synonymous with the Super Bowl, the way NBC is synonymous with the Olympics or CBS is with the NCAA tournament. And again,
they would
as much
pay
as
whatever.
We love our Olympics, and it's 2 weeks long in Salt Lake City. I mean, it's 2 weeks long everywhere, but Salt Lake City loves its Olympics. The Super Bowl, that's what every identity would be. It'd be like coming up next week of The Simpsons on Fox, the home of the Super Bowl.
Yep.
It would be that every
Your
single
home
time.
for the
Your
Super
home
Bowl.
for the Super Bowl. It would be that every time they could use it.
And right now, ESPN has not only college football playoff, but specifically the college football championship game every single year.
Yeah.
They don't have to share it with anybody.
Yeah. So why would you give it up?
It's got to be worth a fortune.
Yep, it does.
Might be the most valuable thing that the mouse has when it comes to ESPN.
I would imagine. I mean,
their share of the Super Bowl
especially individual property. Yes, other than their share of the Super Bowl, probably even once every 4 years. Super Bowl still more valuable, but the NCAA tournament, the NCAA championship game and the entire playoff is really great.
Yeah, the value of that is crazy. I mean, honestly, CBS having the NCAA tournament every year, I'm sure, is a huge part of their money-making ability.
It's the feather in the cap of their sports coverage.
Yeah, might be the only thing that matters. Well,
they got
of
NFL.
course, clearing normal NFL games.
Yeah.
That's for sure. All right, we're going to talk some NBA draft with Chuck coming up here momentarily. Chuck making a return to the Jake and Ben show. He's the host of the Chuck and Darts NBA Draft podcast. In fact, he's with us now. How's it going, Chuck?
Going very well. Thank you all very much for having me.
We appreciate you jumping back with us again this year. Jazz had a top 5 pick last year. They had number 5. They get Ace Bailey, and I think Jazz fans are very happy with that. How should they feel about landing at number 2 in this year's draft specifically? How do you rank it? Because I've heard from some people very close to teams that this isn't a generational draft. I've heard other people say this is your chance to get the best player on a championship team.
Well, they should feel very good. I mean, there's only one other place to go up from number 2, obviously. And I think they should, in terms of the options that they'll have, feel very good about it. I mean, I'm sure y'all have heard about AJ Dybantsa, given his ties to the community and to the Jazz owner and everything. He's not the only great option that they've got. He actually, I would probably prefer Cam Boozer if you're asking me, and we can talk about that, but there will be an excellent player, whether it's Dybantsa, Peterson, Boozer, available to the Jazz at 2. So they're in a great spot.
Just how good is this draft? I feel like we've been talking about it forever as this unbelievable and deep draft. Do you believe that to be the truth?
It's a very good draft. I think last year's draft was better, frankly, in my opinion, because a lot of the depth in this draft is at point guard. And I am a little bit skeptical that all these point guards are really going to work out. You know, the league now is, and the Jazz have a good young point guard, obviously, in Keontae George, but their offense is a sort of like a beautiful offense designed by Will Hardy to take advantage of like bigger players that can operate as hubs away from the paint. And the NBA now is not a point guard initiation league. You still get them. You know, Jalen Brunson might be in the NBA Finals, and obviously Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's leading the Thunder. But even Shai is 6'6", and a lot of the guards in this class that comprise its depth throughout the middle of the lottery are a lot smaller than that. And they have like pretty narrow paths to success. So while it's a good draft, I think it's good, and it'll still thin out as the deadline for returning to college is May the 27th. I think that you definitely want to be at the tippy top. You know, you always want pick number 2 instead of pick number 8. But I think that is especially true this year, in my opinion.
Okay, so you talked about Cam Boozer, and here's what I will say. Between the podcasters, and by the way, that's not dismissing anybody, and the real hardcore draft people, there is one opinion. And then there's everybody who writes digital articles, and that's the other opinion, everyone who puts out like digital mock drafts, which is if you go to a website and you look at who's the number 1 pick, everybody says AJ Dybantsa. But if you do the diehards, the draft nicks, the people who have their podcasts and everything, everyone says it's Cam Boozer and Darryn Peterson fighting for the number 1 spot. I'm not asking you where you fall. I'm asking you why do you think that's the opinion and why it changes as weirdly as it does?
I think that's the AJ Dybantsa is the leading scorer out of these 3, and he also looks the most like a dominant NBA wing. And so that is very attractive. And it's not that doesn't, those are good things. It's good to look like a dominant NBA wing, and it's good to be the leading scorer among freshmen in college basketball. So that's always going to have a lot of people saying that you're the best pick. To go back to those guards, Darius Acuff is the highest scoring guard. And so a lot of people think that he's the best guard, but you have people who say Keaton Wagler or a bunch of other people. I think the Boozer Peterson contingent, not that it's a real like battle or anything, but I think that the Boozer Peterson contingent is more tied to efficiency and how they project efficiency wise in the league. AJ is pretty efficient in how he scores. Like, he's good. Peterson, when he's on, is the best shooter in the draft, and there's always going to be, and he's like a good athlete. And so if you're a great shooter and a very good athlete and you can D up, then you're going to have a ton of fans. And Boozer is the most efficient player in the draft. And has won the most at high school, and he won more than at Duke than Dybantsa or Peterson did. So like, they all have pretty traditional cases. I don't think anything is really out of left field with any of the 3 of them, but that's why I would say.
Think we'll see a lot of trades in this year's draft? I mean, Ben and I talked about Giannis earlier and what Milwaukee's going to do with him. I mean, are we going to see anything big happen?
I hope so, but draft season, to me, trades are a very underutilized team building strategy at draft time. I think most teams, by the time it gets to actually make a pick, have fallen in love. And to be more specific, I think owners have fallen in love with players that they have interviewed. And so they are more reluctant to trade a pick, because they've developed that attachment to it. But it's sort of like buying a new car. That car will lose value when you drive it off the lot. And not that these players become worse once you pick them. That's not the case. But there is never more demand and fervor around these picks than the week before the draft and draft night. And so I do think that shrewd GMs should be more active in trading back. I mean, I think a big winner of the draft last year, if you ask most people, is the Atlanta Hawks, because they traded down from 13 and got the New Orleans Pelicans pick this year, which is, I think, number 8. And it's rare to get a value delta that extreme, but I think that teams should be more active in doing it, even at the very, very top. As far as this year, the Wizards have talked about trading down from number 1. It's hard to know what to believe, at this point, because there's lots of smoke screens. But I think it's at least possible. Anytime you have a draft where there's a real difference of opinion as to who should go even number 1, that's a good environment for trades, because all it takes is one team to think a little bit differently than others, and then all of a sudden you can have trade partners, and that's where it could go.
Chuck, I'm really fighting something when I look at this draft, and it's that everybody says Cam Boozer has the lowest ceiling of the top guys. He's also 6 months younger than everybody else, and I get that he's not a big jumper, but there's not a lot of 29-year-olds in the NBA who are in their prime whose game is based on their ability to jump high. So where do you fall on Cam Boozer, his potential? Is he too close to his ceiling to warrant being this high of a draft pick? Does he have the lowest ceiling? Where do you fall on some of those issues that I think a lot of people are struggling with?
I'm with you. I think that ceiling is a very slippery concept. It's hard to try to project how a player is going to look when they are in their actual NBA prime and reaching their ceiling, which is usually around ages like 26 to 31. That is in 2033, 2034, 2035, when we're all, gray and decaying. So I think a much more useful exercise lots of times is looking at who has the highest floor and what their best skills are. If you can combine floor with best skills, that's a way to approximate ceiling. And jumping, like you mentioned, is not really a skill. It's a characteristic, but it's not something that you can directly link to producing winning basketball. Boozer, to me, has the highest floor because he's the best current player and he's the youngest, like you mentioned. And his best skill is in how he reads the game, how he processes the game, how he controls the game. And that is a very valuable asset to have. I would say that in 2020, Tyrese Halliburton read the game the best, but he fell because people perceived a lower ceiling because he was a skinny guard who was 180 soaking wet. But that ability to read the game propelled him, along with being, a really good shooter and scorer, to vastly outperforming his draft slot. And so Boozer's not a perfect athlete by any stretch, but that ability to read the game is almost perpetually underrated. So to me, his ceiling is someone who can run and operate on a very, very good NBA offense, and who.
All right, we just lost Chuck, so sorry about that.
We'll see if we can get him back. Yeah, we'll try and get him back on. Yeah, interesting to look at these top 3. I think there's going to be a lot of different opinions. And by the way, I think I feel the way Chuck does a little bit about floor versus ceiling. I know a lot of NBA front offices do not, and I'm not saying the Jazz don't. I don't know what Austin Ainge values. I mean, Ace Bailey is the ultimate high ceiling, low floor guy. So they may not value that at all. I'll be curious how they approach this with the number 2 pick.
I just wonder if we're overthinking it. All the, ceiling and floor and all that stuff. I just wonder how much teams consider. I mean, what you're talking about is risk factor, right? Oh. I mean, you're talking about risk of missing on a pick, which is high because we're talking about such young basketball players. But when you're picking 1, 2, or 3, God, you just got to go with the person whose game you like the most, right? I mean, let me put it this way. I feel like that's a lot bigger discussion when you get back a little bit further, right? Take Taylor Hendricks. The risk factor is super high, but you're picking 9th or 10th
Yeah.
or whatever. At 1, 2, or 3 in a draft like this, I would think that you got to get the risk is low. You got to take the player. It's a proven commodity, don't you think? Or am I looking at this thing?
No,
all
I think
wrong?
you're exactly right. In fact, I think we way over. One of my takes for a while has been we way overthink the draft. We overdo the draft. I think the length of process between the combine and the actual draft itself is absurd. It's like 7 weeks from the first day of the combine to the actual draft. It's like there's not 500 guys. There's really probably 15 guys. 60 are going to get their name called. Most of them are going to be on 2 ways in the second round.
Yeah.
Now spread it out over 2 nights. It's just the investment in a guy in the second half of the first round is really low. It's like $2 million. They don't matter actually all that much. It's just like a veteran invite, so it doesn't matter that much. I think we way overdo the draft, despite the fact that I really like it. So yes, I'm totally with you. I think the reason a lot of teams make draft mistakes in retrospect, when you go back, you're like, how did they do that? That was obvious. Mm-hmm. It's because they think about it too many times. They go over it. They check their work too many times, and then they start to pull apart like, I watched Cam Boozer against Virginia, and he got a shot blocked 6 times. It's like, okay, but how did he do the other 29 games? How did he do the other 37? And I think that's the question. So, yeah, we were talking about ceiling and floor, and you I thought explained Cam Boozer extraordinarily well. Along those lines, I guess, where do you look at Darryn Peterson and A.J. Dybantsa in that same, I guess, spectrum or through that same lens?
Those questions are fascinating when it comes to those 2 guys. I think starting with Darryn, it's because, his camp has come out and said that he's going to be a point guard, and they know that they need to say that, because if he comes out and says, I'm a pure shooting guard, his ceiling is lower. Because you just look across the league now, who is the best pure shooting guard in the league who doesn't sort of run his team's offense? Is it kind of like Devin Booker maybe? And Devin Booker's a great player, but Darryn is aiming higher than that, and I think his camp is aiming higher than that. And he played alongside a point guard at Kansas, and he was in and out of the lineup at Kansas because of what his camp is saying is creatine, and who knows, maybe there's some more information to that. But that his ceiling is tied to whether or not he plays point. And I have not made up my mind as to whether or not I feel like he can successfully do that. I think he probably has enough skills to get the chance to play point guard for 2 or 3 years, but playing point guard requires a lot of availability. You got to build that chemistry to the point where your teammates are really playing your style and following your lead. And that's a bit of a question with Peterson, too, is how much he's going to be on the floor. Is he going to be able to play 35 minutes a night, 75 nights a year and do it? And so if you believe he can do that, then you can start to really dream on him as the best player in the draft. But there's, I think, enough skepticism to give people pause. Dybantsa, his ceiling is about whether his approach to the game that he currently has is a good enough NBA approach. Because his approach right now is to leverage his tremendous, scoring instincts and his, preference for driving to the rim and for working in the mid-range when the rim is cut off. And whether or not that is, an NBA apex predator style of scoring, or if it's more like the best version of Brandon Ingram, Ingram is a talented scorer who can fill it up, but there's a limit to mid-range forward prospects. So Dybantsa, I thought, got better as the year went along in terms of sacrificing some of those mid-rangers for passing looks and for finding more creative ways to get to the hoop. But he is still not yet a very natural three-point shooter. And it's about whether or not you think those encouraging steps that he took are going to continue in the right direction, or if he's going to fall into his habits. Because otherwise, I think Ingram might be too low a floor for him. But you see how Paolo Banchero has struggled to become the version of himself that people really want. I think Dybantsa is a better prospect than Paolo, but there can be a similar sort of concern that, yes, he can make all-star teams, but is he making all-star teams for a 5 seed? as opposed to a 2 seed or a 1 seed, that sort of thing.
If the world were like a Sleep Number mattress, everything would adapt for your comfort. Because as your life changes and your body changes, Sleep Number mattresses adapt and shift to give you personalized comfort night after night. And now everything's on sale during our Memorial Day event. Save up to $1,200 on mattresses for a limited time. To experience a whole new world of comfort, visit a Sleep Number store or go to sleepnumber.com. Sleep Number, to a good night's sleep.
I sold my car in Carvana last night.
Well, that's cool.
No, you don't understand. It went perfectly. Real offer, down to the penny. They're picking it up tomorrow. Nothing went wrong.
So, what's the problem?
That is the problem. Nothing in my life goes as smoothly. I'm waiting for the catch.
Maybe there's no catch.
That's exactly what a catch would want me to think.
Wow, you need to relax.
I need to knock on wood. Do we have wood? Is this table wood?
I think it's laminate.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's close enough.
Car selling without a catch. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.
You alluded to Peterson and his shenanigans at Kansas and whatever the explanation may be. Do you think how much? Well, let me put it this way: how much do NBA teams care about that?
Varies by team. I think NBA teams like certainty, as certain as they can be, even if it comes down to a gut feeling. They want their gut to feel confident, and if they feel like they're not getting the whole story, then that will give some of them pause for sure. But it only takes the right team to fall in love. You know, love's a powerful emotion. And if, you know, James Wiseman went second in part because Joe Lacob fell in love with James Wiseman, and James Wiseman played 2 games in college. So there were plenty of people who could have told him that was like a red flag, but it doesn't matter if you get the googly eyes. So I think that Peterson – It depends on, I think, how personally, charismatic and charming he is in these interviews. Kind of like stuff that's far away from his production on the court. But he came out and also said something this year about like he's a naturally introverted person. And I hope I'm not taking that out of context. And maybe he felt like it was taken out of context. But like he may not be the guy that just wows, an owner who's making the ultimate call. I think Dybantsa maybe is more set up to blow teams away in that particular category. So I think there's some teams who could view Peterson as more of a mystery box, and that could hurt his ultimate stock.
Okay, take Darryn Peterson out of it because it's the obvious answer. What's the next biggest kind of wild card in the draft? Whether that's a player or a question about a specific player, who do you think that, or what do you think that could be?
I think there's a lot of questions about Yaxel Lendeborg because he's old, and generally teams, and scouts like to fade older players. And Yaxel's going to be turning 24 before he plays an NBA game. And so everyone, I think, is sort of building in that discount to him. But I am very intrigued by the possibility that he could be very, very, very good in the NBA, like worthy of a top 5 pick. Like that kind of good. And that this age thing, which normally is there for a good reason because it refers to players who were never athletic enough to play in the league until they got older. In Yaxel's case, might be a red herring. I think he's an extremely skilled guy with a lot of physical talent who should not fall out of the top 10. And I get a sinking feeling that the Oklahoma City Thunder at 12 will be more than happy to draft him, and the league will only have itself to blame if that happens.
Chuck, thank you for jumping on with us. We really appreciate it.
Great stuff, Chuck.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
You too. There you go. That's Chuck, host of Chuck and Darts, the NBA Draft Podcast.
I sold my car in Carvana last night.
Well, that's cool.
No, you don't understand. It went perfectly. Real offer, down to the penny. They're picking it up tomorrow. Nothing went wrong.
So, what's the problem?
That is the problem. Nothing in my life goes as smoothly. I'm waiting for the catch.
Maybe there's no catch.
That's exactly what a catch would want me to think.
Wow, you need to relax.
I need to knock on wood. Do we have wood? Is this table wood?
I think it's laminate.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's close enough.
Car selling without a catch. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.